You mentioned some people have been confused about why your date is set to sometime in the future. Have you seen some anyone with confusion about why you're even looking for these problems and why you kind of like why it even matters to fix this now? Because I'm sure some people will think, oh, the problem's X number of years away, 12 years as of recording, however many as of when you're watching this. Like that's a problem for later.
Yeah, I've had one or two people with replies like, uh, yeah, I acknowledge it's a problem, but I have much more urgent things to do right now because maybe there's an embargoed security bug and he has to solve it urgently and hit a deadline. His company runs out of money and yeah, so there's practical concerns and people don't always prioritize fixing things that only are a problem in 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you can really only test stuff that is open source. There's a whole world of proprietary software that very well can have all of these same problems that I would hope the companies that are involved in this are dealing with and testing, but we really have no idea to know what's actually going on there.
Yes, but of course you could do some black box testing. Black box testing where you have your Windows and your proprietary software on top of it, and you tell your Windows, okay, disable NTP, and now your date is set to 2039, and just see how it goes.
That'll obviously work for runtime problems, but build time issues, you're not going to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't build it. You don't even have the sources to build it. That's for the vendors to figure out because they make it proprietary. They get all the problems from that.
So you're only like kind of like one person doing this. If somebody else wanted to help out, find problems in maybe software they make themselves or software they use, what's the easiest way someone can go about actually, doing a test like this?
Yeah, you could test with your system clock set, or in a VM, it's even easier. Because then there's a KVM option where you say -RTC space base equals and give it a timestamp. Then your VM starts running at that time. Or you just do it interactively in the VM and set the time, and then you can play around there with stuff. So that's how I do it for my build tests to run in KVM anyway, to have some isolation. And that would be a way, or just review your code. You can grep for time t and functions using time. There are not that many. But should hopefully become easier soon when we get some compiler patches. There's some work happening on GCC. We want to get warnings for this time t to in conversion and for the in to time t conversion. And when we have these both, then you can compile your server source code and your client source code and get warnings for the actual things, and maybe even declare these warnings as errors. So it throws in your face when you try to compile a program. And says, okay, in this place you do this conversion, and you need to be very sure that it's actually what you meant, and that's safe for 2039.
I did see some discussion on, I don't remember which one it was, whether it was time t to int or int to time t, where one of the maintainers was saying it would make more sense to have that warning closer to language front ends rather than having it where they are.
Yeah, let's call it an implementation detail, because these compilers have internal structures where they have a front end that parses the actual language constructs, and then they have an intermediate language, and from that intermediate language they construct the machine code output and optimize and whatever, and they discuss where in the stack of within the compiler they put the warnings. But in the end, I want a warning, and wherever it ends up, it's fine.
Hopefully that can happen, because at least having a warning there, it can give you some indication you're doing something wrong, because you might have assumed that especially in a large code base that you may not be the only developer on, that there are none of these mistakes. Like, you may personally have not made a mistake, but if you're dealing with a, million line code base that has 30 other people working on it, it's very easy that somebody else has made that and nobody has reviewed that part of the code yet.
Yeah, there's different review cultures in different parts of the software world, let's say.
Mhm.
And when for reproducible bits, I've done a lot of patches, like over 2000. And in one instance, I noticed that I sent a pull request and there was a typo that meant there was a syntax I wanted to compile it all, and they just merged it. And only half a year later, I noticed that it didn't compile, and then I sent a fix up to thing, and they also merged it. So there can be very little review and looking at things that go in, and other projects are better. They actually discuss things and go back and forth and improve things and make things really nice. But that's not the standard everywhere.
So we kind of touched on this earlier, but there is the possibility that if this is not taken seriously, this could be a much larger problem than we saw with Y2K. And especially, like, we can talk about how many computers there are now. That's not slowing down. There are parts of the world that didn't really have internet connections until very recently that are now coming online. Places like India that have massive populations. And over the next 10 years, there's going to be a massive boom of massive boom of like development there, more computers there, and that's going to bring a lot more people that are going to be affected by this. There's only going to be more computers. Then you have all of the data center build outs that are happening. By 2038, like, who knows how many computers there will be by then, let alone how much more connectivity there are between these devices as well.
If you say computer, you also need to consider smartphones, which are computers by all means, because there's a Linux kernel running on it and some user space. And so there's a lot of these billions of devices. And when you think about the physical world, like our city, they got new streetcars or tram. And the previous ones that are still going when there's busy hours, they were from the 70s. And you can see how long this stuff keeps around. And yeah, they got some electronic upgrades over the time. But these days they have screens and showing next station and when they will be there. So they do have a clock. And I'm not sure if anyone ever tested if they will keep working after 2039, because they will definitely be going the new ones after that date, and can expect these things. So there's long-lived hardware out there, and that will have trouble. And these small devices that get replaced maybe slightly more often, but some stuff it just keeps running, and you have it somewhere. Or not you, but institutions. Institutions have this kind of thing where it gets set up by someone and it gets put there and it runs and runs, and nobody remembers how it was done, but it keeps working and doing useful stuff.
Right, somebody has a Debian server sitting in a closet somewhere. They know it's powering something. They don't know who put it there, but it's very important.
Yeah, and these days it's not Debian servers, but Raspberry Pi size Debian servers. And they keep running this kind of thing. And if you just have them internally and not exposed to the internet, it's not even that big of a threat security-wise. So I can imagine things to keep running for another 12 years and be forgotten about. And at some point, yeah, it might break. Tough luck.
But the closer we get to this, like the closer we get to this, the more likely it is that there is going to be a system that is still in deployment that has one of these currently unpatched problems that is still going to be in deployment then, that may become an issue.
Yeah, last week I talked to someone named Troy, And he set up a more official initiative with ITU, I think.
Mhm.
It's the International Telecommunications Union, and another organization called FOSS that cares more about security issues. But if you have these SSL certificates that are supposed to be expired and then suddenly they are not expired, that can be a security issue as well. So these things. So yeah, but safety definitely can be involved. And where was I?
You're talking about security, SSL, expiry.
I talked to him, and
Someone named Troy set up a thing.
so they want to get more people involved in these things and ensure that more large organizations get involved in like governments and in enterprise. If you have an enterprise and you rely on IT somewhere, and every enterprise does, then you want to just keep it work and ensure that it keeps working. And for that, you want to go to your vendors and say, hey, vendor, do you know if your software is safe for running past 2038? And then the vendor has to go to its sub vendors and sub vendors and figure out if they are sure what's in there, or maybe they have also source code because it's an open source product, but there can be complicated supply chains. If you've ever looked at Android, there's these chip makers and board makers, and so you have different vendors for different parts of systems, and can be complicated supply chains for some things.